Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to the Irv Homer Show. Today is Monday, September the 1st, 2008. It is Labor Day. And yes, I decided to do a program today live and in person. And got some interesting things that I'm going to bring to date right now. And I know because it's Labor Day, the viewing audience and the listening audience at the present time may be extremely limited. However, since it goes on the archive, many people read the archives, and I think you'll find this one a little interesting compared to other programs that you may be listening to today or in the future. Today, of course, is the opening of the Republican National Convention in St. Paul, and it is being upstaged by Gustav the Hurricane and another one coming up called Hannah, and it kind of threw the monkey wrench into the opening of the Republican National Convention, and probably quoting, say, maybe Jerry Falwell, the late Jerry Falwell, or maybe quoting Pat Robertson or Jimmy Swaggart. This may be God's way of getting back to the Republicans. If you recall, I think it was Jerry Falwell that said that the destruction of the World Trade Center was God's way of getting even with America for being evil and accepting gays, and a couple of other crazy statements made by people such as Oral Roberts and other of the fundamentalist folks. So maybe this is God's way of saying to the Republicans, hey, you know what, guys, the last 8 years haven't been that great. So here's a hurricane for you to kind of take the smoke away from you. Then we're debating whether Obama should have been there and whether John McCain should be there and who, what, and where, and when, and all this other stuff. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. What I want to deal with today is a very delicate, sensitive subject. And as you know, Sarah Palin, the governor of Alaska, is selected to be the vice presidential candidate with John McCain. And there seems to be a problem that has come to light during the hurricane and the Republican National Convention, and that is the admission today that the 17-year-old daughter of Sarah Palin is pregnant and she is not married. I don't do this program with any relish. I don't like it because, knowing the tenor of many people, sometimes it turns into hostility instead of debating or discussing the issue in the clarity in which I want to. Sometimes I don't have the verbal skill to present my point of view the way I want it to, but I want it to be known that I have no hatred, no disgust, no sin, no anything toward the child or to the governor or to anything on a personal level. It strictly, hopefully, will be on facts and facts alone. I wouldn't even make mention of this if it weren't for the fact that the entire Republican Party deals with this fundamental base, the religious fundamental base of morality. And we've had the moral majority, and there was a whole push of the Republican Party to join the moral majority. Now, we folks who believe in equal opportunity sin, both Democrats and Republicans, know that people have a habit of enjoying sex for pleasure. Nobody knows when the age starts, when it doesn't start. But by right, the only way to have children is the propagation of the faith, and you make babies when you're married to continue the faith, and I will let that. But these are your words, they're not mine, you see. And so we have a very delicate position in the media with a young lady, 17 years of age, who is the daughter of the vice presidential candidate on the moral Republican side. And I'll continue throwing the moral Republican side into this program because you, who are staunch Republicans and fundamentalists, are the ones who've been throwing morality at me for years. I'm immoral. I enjoy being immoral. Morality is in the eyes of the beholder. What I do may be immoral to you, but it's not to me. What you do may be immoral to me, but not to you. So don't judge my morality by your standards, and I won't judge your morality by my standards. But to the 17-year-old young lady, some questions that I would like to know. from the moral Republican side, does anyone in the media or anyone watching or listening to the program now know what the age of consent is in the state of Alaska? Is it 17, 18, 19, 20, or 21? Now, if it is not 17 years of age, then the young man who impregnated the governor's daughter is guilty of statutory rape. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with statutory rape, if two consenting young people, 16 or 17 years of age, consent to get involved in a sexual relationship, and there's a baby born, or there isn't a baby born, even though the relationship was consensual, it's against the statute of the state of Alaska. So I don't know what the statutory rape law is in the state of Alaska. I didn't have time to research it, but maybe someone out there can. And you would think that one of the geniuses on radio and television would have researched this.
16.
Oh, the age of consent is 16 in Alaska.
And the age for viewing adult material is 18.
Is 18. Well, they're allowed to screw at 16, so the young man is not guilty of statutory rape. And I thank you for that information, Ron. Incidentally, we're broadcasting from IrvHomer.com, courtesy of the technical skills of RGH Computer Services. For all your computer needs, websites, etc., their telephone number is 215-322-8685 for any computer problems that you may have, or any questions, or any work that you need done. Well, I forgot to shut the phone off. Anyway, one of the blitzes says that's my cell phone going on. Anyway, shut up already. Everybody stand at attention. It's Labor Day. At ease, man. At ease. Smoke if you got them.
You charged it up.
Anyway, moving right along. So the statutory rape law in the state of Alaska is 16, so the young man is not guilty of statutory rape. How do you explain this with a moral Republican majority? And how do you folks out there who are moralists, and incidentally, I happen to be a registered Republican, so, it may come as a shock to many of you folks. And this is a question that they're going to have to tap dance very gingerly. Of course, Barack Obama already made a statement today that children are not fair game in a political campaign, and that he can understand the problem of the child, etc., so forth and so on, and he made all kinds of excuses. And of course, the Republicans, us moral Republicans, are saying, well, at least she's not going to abort the baby, which is fine. However, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the whole problem that evolved from this condescending attitude today of the young lady being pregnant and single as to what it was years ago. And I hate to tell you, conservatives, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to hear it. It was the liberals. It was the liberals that said there is no such thing as an illegitimate child. It was not you conservatives. No. Don't take credit for something that you don't deserve. It was the liberals in the sexual revolution of the 60s who said, do not pass the sin on to the child of a sin committed by the parent. The parent may have been illegitimate, may have been sinful, but there is no child born in wedlock, out of wedlock, rape, or anything else that is illegitimate. Children are not illegitimate. But it was the liberals, you fake, phony, fraud, conservative Republicans, that didn't want it changed. I remember being in a debate many years ago with the Reverend Theodore Floyd, a delightful black fundamentalist Christian minister who was a frequent caller to my program. In fact, Reverend Floyd's son happened to go to Frankfurt High School with my oldest son. And when they met, and they said, oh my God, your dad and I argue back and forth about the Vietnam War, and it was a great relationship that they developed over the years. But Reverend Floyd called my program once when I, at the time, said, as you know, I deal with issues. I don't deal with liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. And I said, it's an absolute disgrace that these children that are born out of wedlock are carrying a stigma with them as illegitimate. And he said, Irving, and I hope that you'll forgive my dialect, I want you to know how I feel as a fundamentalist Christian minister. That child should be given one name. Not the father's name and not the mother's name, but that child should be known as a bastard. I said, I beg your pardon, Reverend Floyd? Those children are bastards. That's what they are. Well, we went through a whole big discussion around about, and then we had fundamentalists call, we had the liberals call. But I wanted to make a point that it wasn't you conservatives that suddenly have this attitude today with this 17-year-old pregnant daughter of the governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin, but it was the liberals that forced society through legislation, through an adoption of the moral code, that no child is illegitimate, regardless of how it was conceived or how it is born. So don't go patting yourself on the back because a young lady decided not to have an abortion, that it's a badge of honor. She would have been scorned, probably pillaged, probably have rocks thrown at her had you conservative Republicans continued to have your way of calling this child a bastard. But as I've said many, many times, maybe I've lived too long and I've seen the evolution of thought from the time I started in radio until the present day. So what used to be a bastard is now a little baby that will be born, whether it was love child, whatever it was, will be born and be recognized as legitimate, given all the freedom and respect and constitutional rights that everyone else has. But there are still some of you, both Democrat and Republican, both liberal and conservative, will consider it to be a horrible thing that this child, sure, it's horrible that she got pregnant. But what's horrible about it is the so-called family values that have been extolled by the Falwells and the Robertsons and the Swaggarts and the fake, phony Republican conservatives that are trying to figure out, how do I go around this? The fake, phony William Crystal being interviewed at the Republican National Convention about 15 minutes ago had one of those, we used to refer to them as, it's S-H-I-T, smiling grins on his face. Because he couldn't conceive. You are in a very delicate position, aren't you, you fake, phony conservatives? And you'll excuse this, well, children are off limits in a political convention. Morality isn't, though, is it? So how do you divorce the one from the other? Very difficult. Once again, let me say that it's mostly, wish the child well, I wish the baby well, I hope they get married, have a fruitful, eventful life. But I've got to do the program that I want to do. And this is part of the program. As I said, had it not been for the so-called morality, family values, and that other clown minister that runs around loose that the president had to have a meeting with, it wasn't for you people throwing morality and family values constantly as a political process instead of a personal lifestyle, I wouldn't even mention it. Because I accept the frailty of human beings, and especially the outrageous hormones of young people. And so now what used to be bastards is now a badge of honor because she's not having an abortion. Wonderful, great. I'm thrilled about that fact. I'm thrilled. I'm sure the baby was thrilled about it too. But you fake, phony conservatives, it wasn't your idea that made that illegitimate baby into a legitimate child. It was the liberals that did it. So live with it, and you heard it on the Irv Homer Show. And while we go with the, and I don't like to read things, but I have to read this. While we see Newt Gingrich and these other moral Republicans, conservatives, if you will, all over the Hannity and Combs, all over the, even during the Democrat convention, you had these fake, phony Newt Gingriches and the other conservative, fundamentalist, moral Republicans. Let me read something that I've saved over the years from my files. This goes back to 1998. for some of you conservative, moral Republicans who you will see from time to time on television professing their morality and their family values and giving seats of honor at the Hannity and Combs table and at the Sean Hannity program and on the Rush Limbaugh program, on the Michael, I'm sorry, I'm a Jew Medved program. It's entitled We the Jury. And I hope I don't bore you with this, but I think you'll find it interesting. We the Jury is an article that appeared in The Nation magazine on November the 30th, 1998. Do you admit or deny that you are the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States? So commences Henry Hyde's 81-gun salute to the Chief Executive, a round of admit or deny queries fired off to President Clinton as a prelude to the Judiciary Committee's express track Zippergate hearings, during Bill Clinton's impeachment. Well, let's consider the qualifications of the 435-member prosecution team who, if Henry Hyde sticks to his schedule, may well vote on articles of impeachment by the year's end, which they did. No fewer than 30 members of the current House and Senate, most of them just re-elected, 1998, have confessed to, been convicted of, or been credibly documented as violating laws or congressional ethics rules. Among the House side of the Dirty 30, ranging from mouthy but obscure backbenchers all the way up to the new Speaker apparent Bob Livingston, are at least 2 representatives who have been caught employing prostitutes, 2 alleged serial sexual harassers, 4 who covered up knowledge of felonies in the Iran-Contra scandal, and 6 who have attempted to use their influence to win favor for convicted criminals. And that's just the current Congress. Since 1971, at least 39 members have been convicted and gone to prison. But let's deal with the moral, conservative Republicans that you see from time to time as men of honor on television today. Only a handful of transgressors like Newt Gingrich, cruelty to his critically ill first wife, are well known. That's right, he was cruel to his first wife who had cancer. Here are queries for a few other members of the impeachment militia. These cases are detailed from St. Martin's Press glass houses, shocking profiles of congressional sex scandals, and other unofficial misconduct. Sexual harassment. You all remember Dick Armey, Republican of Texas? Dick, do you admit or deny that as an economics professor before entering Congress, you sexually harassed female students reported in the Dallas Observer? Republican moral, Dick Armey. John Peterson, Republican of Pennsylvania. Do you admit or deny sexual harassment in a hostile work environment, claims by 6 women? Peterson, quote, well, I may have been an excessive hugger. Another Republican, conservative, immoral, a Republican. Dan Burton, you've seen Dan Burton, the Bulldog, Republican of Indiana. Do you admit or deny that in 1997 you accepted illegal contributions from Sikh temples and from Zair's reviled despot, Mobutu, returned only after negative publicity? Do you admit or deny that you tried to extort a sizable donation from a lobbyist for Pakistan? Tom DeLay, you've seen him, Mr. Tom DeLay, Republican of Texas. Do you admit or deny that in 1995 you drummed up congressional support for an easing of anti-dumping regulations sought by a Mexican cement company? Oh, that your brother was the lobbyist for? Mr. Tom DeLay. Jay Kim, Republican of California. Jim, do you admit or deny that between 1994 and 96 you received $230,000 in illegal contributions from South Korean corporations? Oops, you've already admitted in a plea bargain, which is why you're wearing that electronic ankle bracelet and why your wife called you the most crime-committing person she knew. Well, you were defeated in the Republican primary, but if Henry Hyde stays on schedule, you'll still get the vote on Clinton's impeachment with your ankle bracelet on. And who can forget the lovely Helen Chenoweth, Republican of Idaho, moral Republican conservative. Do you admit or deny that in 1994 you accepted illegal campaign contributions originating in Hong Kong? And do you admit or deny that you failed to disclose $50,000 in an under-the-table financing for your 1994 campaign, delaying an admission of fault until one day after the House deadline for filing ethics complaints? Bill McCullen, a Republican of Florida, a great moral majority. Do you admit or deny that you paid your top Washington aide $100,000 for ethically dubious consulting fees for campaign work? Look into that one, folks. That's interesting. Continuing with the moral Republicans, conservatives, would-be Speaker Livingston, Republican of Louisiana, McCollum Hyde, and Bob Stump, Republican of Arizona, do you admit or deny that you were informed by Robert McFarland of illegal contrafunding as documented by Oliver North's diaries, making you accessories? Now, Bob Barr has probably had a conversion somewhere in his life because he was one of the managers in the impeachment of Bill Clinton. Bob Barr, Republican of Georgia, who is a strong family value man, do you admit or deny that though you were the principal sponsor of the 1996 Defense of Marriage Act, you sustained 2 divorces and you're on wife number 3? And do you admit or deny that at a celebrity fundraiser in 1992, you licked whipped cream from the breasts of 2 women? Just reading what's written about you in the papers, Mr. Barr. And to Dan Burton and J.C. Watts. J.C. Watts, you remember, was the African-American whip that the Democrats or the Republicans used constantly on television. Do you admit or deny you spent years covering up your out-of-wedlock children? Watts' motto was this. J.C. Watts. You've seen J.C. Watts if you're a television watcher with the moral Hannity and Limbaugh, etc., etc. Well, J.C. Watts says, character is simply doing right when nobody's looking. Well, let's go to Ken Calvert, Republican of California, ladies and gentlemen. You said we can't forgive what occurred between the president and Monica Lewinsky. Do you admit, Ken, or deny, that you were caught by the police in 1993 receiving oral sex from a prostitute and attempted to flee the scene? Do you admit or deny that even though you are a principal water carrier for the Christian Coalition, you've been sued as an alimony deadbeat by your ex-wife? And our dear Henry Hyde, Republican of Illinois, the white-haired genius. Never mind that 5-year youthful indiscretion that started at age 41. See, when Henry Hyde got caught, he said it was the youthful indiscretion. The only thing was he was 41 at the time. So I can't figure out how old you are when you ain't no longer a youth. Do you admit or deny that while on the board of an SNL, you were sued by federal bank regulators for participating in decisions that cost taxpayers millions, even as you served the SNL industry's interest in Congress? And our dear Strom Thurmond, the leader of the Southern Republican moral majority. Remember, dear old Strom. I think he was the oldest man that ever lived in Congress. Do you admit or deny that facts appear to corroborate the story that you fathered an African-American child whom you supported while you were your state segregationist governor? Do you admit or deny that your staff called you the sperminator? Well, I have to pause for a moment. Here's a guy, Strom Thurmond, who was a right-wing conservative moralist, but he was the father. He did father an African-American child, and he supported her up until the day she graduated college. So I congratulate Strom Thurmond for that. He took the responsibility that he had. He didn't abandon it. But while being the father of an African-American child born out of wedlock, he was beating the drum in Congress for the Defense of Marriage Act and all this other moral malarkey that the conservative, fundamentalist, moral Republicans put through. Well, folks, the Dirty 30 make the current Congress a community with a law-breaking rate roughly 4 times that of the general public. They break the law. Our congressmen and senators, probably even today, break the law roughly 4 times more than we do. 23 of the Dirty 30 are Republicans, suggesting that GOP politicians are a decidedly at-risk population, 3 times as likely as Democrats to commit legal or ethical violations, or at least 3 times as likely to get caught. This record of fungible ethics provides essential context for the impeachment machine clanking into motion. In the words of Mark Twain, Congress is America's only genuine criminal class. And as I said in the beginning of the program, I wouldn't even mention it if the conservative Republican wing of my party, the Republican Party, wouldn't be so damn hypocritical in the arguments that they used in which the liberals over the period of time, ladies and gentlemen, have made it possible for a young child in the belly of the daughter of Sarah Palin, the vice presidential candidate of the Republicans, that child will be born legitimate. Wasn't you conservative Republicans? Because you, in the days that I started this as a liberal Republican, demanded that there would be no child ever born that's illegitimate. You're not going to allow Hannity to talk like that. I won't be permitted to talk like that on that program. I'm not even permitted on commercial radio to talk like that. But the facts must be known, and that's why this program is dedicated to giving you the facts and information that not the mainstream media, but the so-called honest media, the blogospheres, the windbags of radio and television, just make it look like all the Democrats and all the liberals are immoral, they're evil, they have no scruples. Now let's get to the real fundamentalists. The real fundamentalists. If you want to go by the literal translation of the Bible, the good book, that you constantly see these hucksters on television, they're selling you salvation, they're selling you a one-way trip to heaven. At least if you're a Muslim, you get 92 virgins. But do you ever read the Bible? I would venture to say that me as an agnostic reads the Bible and knows more about the Bible than most of you folks do. And many folks are very selective as what they take out of the good book, because it makes you comfortable. See, the Bible, in my opinion, both the Old Testament and New Testament, is a great lesson in the First Amendment. My dear friend Rabbi Meir Kahane many years ago, in one of his speeches before he was assassinated because he dared tell the truth, and what's happening in the Middle East now was prophesied by Rabbi Meir Kahane in those days. He said the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States is to make comfortable people uncomfortable. Because if everybody spoke and everybody agreed, you wouldn't need a First Amendment. So think about it. The First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States is to make comfortable people uncomfortable. And ladies and gentlemen, it has made me uncomfortable many, many, many times. So let's take some quotes from the good book. As Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof said many times, in the good book it says, of course Tevye made up a lot of stuff that wasn't in the good book, but it made for a great show. And this letter was written to President Bush on January the 18th, the year 2005, on moral values, as exposed by the moral majority, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, etc. Dear President Bush, thank you for doing so much to educate people regarding God's law. I've learned a great deal from you and understand why you proposed and support a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. As you said, quote, in the eyes of God, marriage is based between a man and a woman. I try to share that knowledge with as many people as I can. When someone tries to defend the homosexual lifestyle, I quote the Bible. For example, I simply remind them that Leviticus 18:22 clearly states that it's an abomination. End of that debate. It's in the good book. Some people, you've seen the bumper sticker says it's in the book. I believe it, and that's it. However, President Bush, moral fellow Republicans, dear friends, viewers, even enemies of the Irv Homer Show, I do need some advice from you, however, regarding some other elements of God's laws and how do I follow them. For example, Leviticus 25:44 states that I may possess slaves, both male and female, provided they are purchased from neighboring nations. However, a friend of mine claims that this applies to Mexicans but not Canadians. Joke. Can you clarify why can't I own Canadians? Leviticus 25:44 states that you can own and possess slaves, both male and female. Let's not talk about that part, huh? Okay. Number 2, I would like to sell my daughter into slavery as sanctioned in Exodus 21:7. In this day and age, President Bush, what do you think would be a fair price for her? In the good book. Number 3, I know that I am allowed no contact with a woman while she is in her period of menstrual uncleanness. Leviticus 15:19-24. The problem is, how do I tell? I've tried asking, but most women take offense. Number 4. When I burn a bull on the altar as a sacrifice, I know it creates a pleasing odor for the Lord. Leviticus 1:9. The problem is my neighbors. They claim the odor is not pleasing to them. Should I smile at them? There are laws against the good book that says I can burn a bull on my altar as a sacrifice. Is that anti-God, ladies and gentlemen? If it is, go to your city council and have that law stricken from the books. I have a neighbor who insists on working on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:2 clearly states that he should be put to death. Am I morally obligated to kill him myself? Or should I ask the police to do it? A friend of mine feels that even though eating shellfish is an abomination, Leviticus 11:10, it is a lesser abomination than homosexuality. I don't agree. Can you settle this? Are there degrees of abomination? Leviticus 21:20 states that I may not approach the altar of God if I have a defect in my sight. Well, I have to admit that I wear reading glasses. Does my vision have to be 20/20, or is there any wiggle room here? Most of my male friends get their hair trimmed, including the hair around their temples, even though Leviticus 19 forbids this. 27, how should they die? Number 9, I know from Leviticus 11:6-8 that touching the skin of a dead pig makes me unclean, but may I still play football if I wear gloves? And number 10, my uncle has a farm. He violates Leviticus 19:9 by planting 2 different crops in the same field. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the teachings of Jesus. In one of the writings of Jesus, I believe in the Jeffersonian Bible, you see what Thomas Jefferson did was very brilliant, the president, and as a man. He took the words of Jesus out of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and he created what was known as the Jefferson Bible. And it's not like the Bible, but the King James Version or the Luther. He said, not what John said, that Paul said, because some of these people quoted Jesus. Jesus was already dead, so they had no idea what he said. But what Jefferson did, he took the words of what Jesus said. And Jesus used the word hypocrisy in his speechings and teachings as he was. See, Jesus, I hate to tell you, wasn't a preacher. He was a teacher. That's where a lot of Christians get confused. Rabbis are not preachers. In fact, some rabbis get confused too. Rabbis are teachers. And Jesus was a great teacher. But he was more opposed to hypocrisy than he was to sin. And I suppose there was a standard there between sin and hypocrisy. So going through the list of these moral Republicans that you'll see being quoted day in and day out for the next 5 days, and I do wish in all sincerity that the storms of Hannah and Gustav come to an end and the folks there are given as much recovery money and aid as possible. I want the Republican Party to have equal time on television that the Democrat Party had, so that we, the viewers, can watch with clarity, with honesty, the presentation that the Republicans will make to give us a better choice of who to vote for in November. And I mean that in all sincerity. I'm not pleased with the fact that this tragic natural disaster occurred, which denies me the opportunity as a news junkie to watch the Republican convention. So hopefully they'll get it back together again and not use John McCain's appearance or Obama's appearance or Biden or Palin's appearance there for a political game. These are human lives. They're Americans that are suffering the tragedy of a natural disaster. And if I were living in that area, I'd split, man. 1 or 2 hurricanes would be enough for me. I'm not happy with tornadoes or hurricanes or floods. Be that as it may, that's the name of the story. So that is the opening of today's program. With no malice toward the 17-year-old lady that's pregnant, no malice toward her mother, to the Republican Party, but to the morality that the Republican Party and the conservative fundamentalists of the Republican Party have tried to move their moral standards above mine and above the rest of society that doesn't agree with them, that you are just as weak morally, you're just as fake as those who you condemn and criticize. And if you think you're fooling this God that you believe in, I got news for you. If this turkey is as sharp as he's supposed to be, the only people you're fooling is yourself. Because you ain't fooling that man or that woman or that thing or that omnipotent being one damn bit. And if you're led by the false prophets of radio and television today, then you deserve to get everything you get. Financially, in your own personal life, scandal, depression, poverty, you deserve it all. Not because of them, not because of the politicians, not because of the lobby, but because of yourself. People are like pack animals. They need a leader, they need a follower. Some of you folks follow blindly. Oh, I love you. I think you're brilliant. I think you're wonderful. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want anybody to follow me. I want you to learn from me as I pass on my life experience to you. People ask me, well, what do you think of this lawyer? I said, the lawyer's good for me. Well, if it's any good, I said, oh, no, he's good for me. What about chelation? Well, that was good for me. I know it's going to be good for you. It may kill you. Check it out as I did. Check these things out for yourself. What do you think of a Chrysler? What do you think? What do I care? If I drive a Mercedes, well, I like it. You may not like it. You drive a Buick, you may drive a Ford, you may drive a Jaguar, you may drive a Rolls Royce. I don't know. I drive what I'm comfortable with. If I'm not comfortable with it, I dump it and get a new one. I've had 4 new cars this year because I didn't like any of them until the ones I got now. Why should I do something that I'm not happy with? Why do you do things that you're not happy with? Bail out. Get out of it. Take your hit and run. You'll start over again. You can do it again. But some people would rather suffer. Listen carefully what I'm going to tell you. Some people would rather suffer than change. You'd rather suffer the indignities. You'd rather suffer the depression. You'd rather suffer the public opinion against than the change. Because change requires work, dedication. I know, I'm trying to lose weight. And it's not easy to change. It's not easy for me to give that sweet taste that I have after I eat. I've got to have dessert. It's bad for me. I have learned how to eat slower instead of being a glutton and shove everything down. So change is extremely difficult. And that's why we follow the path of least resistance. We're like water. Water will follow the path of least resistance. You put a wall up, the water will go away. Change the way, it will go the other way. Change the other. Well, human beings are the same way. We take the path of least resistance in our life, even though we're suffering from that path. Even though we may be doing damage to ourselves, both physically, mentally, we take that path because it is less resistance. And God forbid someone should use the First Amendment, because that will make you uncomfortable. And you don't want to be uncomfortable. I'm Irv Homer. We're broadcasting from the irvhomer.com. And my website, if you want to contact me, is www.irvhomer.com. And the email address is evilirv@irvhomer.com. This is Monday, September 1st, 2008. It is Labor Day. And we'll be announcing next week, or the rest of this week, our new time change, a new schedule, and a list of guests that we anticipate having on the program. We want to thank Valerie Morrison for being on the program last Friday. We received a tremendous amount of response. We will have interesting guests, informative guests. Not guests to have on the air because they present a different point of view, but guests that will provide you with information to make your life a lot easier in the trying times that we are going to face. Make no mistake about it, after the inauguration in January of the year 2009, regardless of who wins, John McCain or Barack Obama, there will be some dramatic changes made in the United States. And as I've said many, many times, money talks and BS walks. If you follow the money trail today as to what is happening, you will see the corrections that will be made after the election. So be apprised that the Bloc Party is coming to a rapid end, and that you better be prepared for change in your lifestyle, in your buying habits, in your consumer habits. You'll change attitudes, you'll change opinions, but above all, the most important thing is, and it has come to my attention, that one of the biggest problems that we have in society is money. Between parents and children, between husbands and wives, between parents and their parents, wills, estates, all of this, everything manages. If you go back to the root of the problem, it evolves around money. And money has become a commodity. And why is money different today, ladies and gentlemen, than it was 30 years ago? In fact, I learned about it during World War II. You're going to say, how in the hell, Irv, can you learn about how money works during World War II? I was still overseas when the war was over. I was in Italy at the time the war was over, and a big celebration on the airfield. Then we went, my job was at that time, is going into southern Germany, into northern Italy, into Austria, and looking for planes from my group that had been shot down. That was our job, my job. But then when we weren't flying, I was commanded by a general who eventually went to jail. He was with the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. He went to jail. He practically sent Italy home to himself. I mean, this guy was poetry in motion. He stole so much. It's a wonder there was any money left in Italy and Germany. And I found out that my pilot and I and crew were flying money all over Europe. I had no idea what we were doing. We would be hundreds of thousands of currency exchanges. Yellowbacks for greenbacks, greenbacks for pounds, pounds for lira, lira for marks. What were we doing? We were making more money for this general exchanging currency than selling products on the black market that he was doing. And so it dawned on me that you can make money using money as a commodity. And what he used to do, genius. What he used to do is watch the currency exchange rate. And the currency exchange rate went up in England, bingo. We'd fly a load of stuff to England, bring back pounds, take the pounds, trade it for lira. Lira would change and convert them to marks. Maybe take $50,000 in American currency, and after making the tour of money exchanges at airports, military airports, we may come back with $200,000-$300,000. And I said, this is ingenious. You can make money out of money. And that's what we do in America today. Why don't we have a manufacturing base here? Why is all the manufacturing going over to China, going over to South Korea, going over to Taiwan? We sell money in America. We're money traders. If you don't believe it, and it is absolutely ingenious the way our monetary system works today. Let's say you got $100,000 to invest. Prior to 50 years ago, you would look for a product, open up a manufacturing plant, open up a store, open up a retail outlet, have an inventory, have this, have the other thing, and you make money, right? But isn't it easier today to take that $100,000 and invest it overseas on a currency exchange and get back euro dollars, or get back British pounds, or get back marks, depending on how the market fluctuates? So you can take the same $100,000, have no inventory, have no sales staff, have no office staff, comply with no federal regulations, but buy and sell money all over the world. So we have become the international bank of transfers in America, in which we buy and sell money. And who are the people that are succeeding in America? Boscov is going broke. What's that place that charges $4 for Starbucks? They're closing stores. But if you take a look at the accounting firms and the law firms that represent these people, they're making money. And you know why? Because accountants, lawyers, finance, their inventory is their brain. Their brain. My financial advisor has an office. Probably replaced the whole office with $25,000 worth of computers and typewriters and paper stacks, stuff like that. His money is in his brain. We don't need today in America big manufacturing plants with millions of dollars invested and all kind of labor negotiations and problems. Our inventory is in the brain. The accountant, the lawyer, the financial advisor, the estate planner. They have no inventory except their own genius. That's why education is more important today. You're not going to find very few people with a third-grade education becoming multimillionaires today, unless they employ the brain inventory of folks that I mentioned. Our chat room has a response here from Art in Philadelphia. A hypocrite despises those whom he deceives, but has no respect for himself. He would make a dupe of himself, too, if he could. William Hazlitt, British essayer, said that. He's absolutely right, Art. But very few people want to admit they're hypocrites to any situation at all, at any time. We do have a chat room. If you're anybody out there want to get on the chat board, please feel free to do so. Of course, this is Labor Day, ladies and gentlemen, the year 2008, September the 1st, and the Jerry Lewis Telethon has been running since last night, and I admire the man for having the ability to raise money for MDA. Now, I think he's dealing with Lou Gehrig's disease in raising money. But I was thinking, I wonder if we could run a telethon for a fighter plane, or the Army, or the Navy. I guess not. But the cost of this operation, there have been many criticisms of Jerry Lewis Telethon. I still say the biggest percentage of that money goes for research into the dreaded diseases that Jerry of muscular dystrophy has jumped on the bandwagon for. I take a look at the crime log that is listed in the Bucks County Courier-Times that I received, and that crime log is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what is the biggest crime that is listed in the crime log in Bucks County? Now, they don't list Philadelphia crime, they list Bucks County crime only. So I want to warn you drivers that come up in the Bucks County where we're broadcasting from. Drunk driving. DUIs. No matter how much publicity has been given to the dangers and the evils of driving while intoxicated, no matter how many stops they have, for some reason or other, it just doesn't sink in. It doesn't sink in. And it is extremely, extremely dangerous to drive today with automobiles that have the power that they have. And why automobiles have the power and speed capability they've got today, I don't know. But drunk driving today, with all of the publicity, with all of the news media, all of the car stops, just doesn't seem to stop the drunk driver. I don't know whether it's irresponsible saloon keepers. Well, we don't have saloon keepers anymore. We have sports bars and go-go joints, and I mean, those places are so damn wild, and sports fans are so damn crazy when they watch a game. You go into a bar that's got 7 television sets all going at the same time. How in the hell can you enjoy a drink? I go to a bar to relax and have a drink, a little conversation. If I watch television, I'll go home and watch it. What the hell? What's in a sport with 7 television sets in a bar for? What purpose? You used to go to a bar to pick up a girl. Girl went in to pick up a guy. Have a date. Dance. Have some fun. Like a bunch of idiots with a finger in the air and cheesecakes on their head, and they're frightening. If I came from another planet and went and looked at some of these sports bars playing Green Bay with the cheeseheads, is that what it is? The cheeseheads with Green Bay? You'd be nuts. But drunk driving is a major issue. All of the things that you're going to be on, that's been on the back burner, with the 3 major events that are going on now. Number 1, the Republican convention, the Democrat convention, and the hurricane will 2 pass in about a week or 10 days after the Republican convention. And then we'll get down to some serious problems that we can resolve as human beings. But it's requiring thinking of your own. Remember, the first person you're responsible to is yourself. And although I don't believe in a lot of the religiosity that's out there in the market, because I don't want religion huckstered, and religion now is being huckstered and sold like hula hoops. But one of the things that I've found in my life experience is an expression that I've learned to live with. To thine own self be true. And I don't want to sound like a preacher or a huckster, although, believe it or not, folks, I was approached about 25 years ago to accept Jesus as my personal Savior and use my ability to communicate to people in layman's terms, not flowery language and 17-syllable words, to become an evangelist, they guaranteed me that I could make $500,000 a year. Until I looked at it, I'll tell you the truth, I was seriously contemplating it. I was seriously contemplating becoming a radio and television evangelist, a Jew who found Jesus. Now, I guarantee you I could have made $1 million a year with the inventory of the head. See, if you got nothing up here, you ain't got no inventory for anything. You got to have the inventory up here. You have a machine that's got bells and whistles, but if you don't have the mental inventory, that machine's not going to work. And you're not going to be able to invent that machine or correct that machine. So if you're a person who has brain inventory, be proud of what you've got. That's your inventory, man or woman. But to thy own self be true. You fool yourself. You're going to have more problems in your life than you will ever have if somebody else causes you harm. You're going to do more damage to yourself if you lie to yourself. Get a little philosophical here, folks. But it's a kind of off day, and probably some folks being on the archive will pick it up. So we'll see what the results of the television telethon is for Jerry Lewis. Today is Labor Day, which don't mean anything except the last day of summer. Well, there were a couple of Labor Day parades. Maybe one day we'll do a program on the good unions and the bad unions and the labor movement in America and how it evolved. But I want to leave you with one thing, and that is this DUI, which is bothering me. As a libertarian, I want you to get as drunk, as sloppy as you want to. But I don't want you on the highway that's going to hurt me or my loved ones. You want to be a drunk? Do it at home. Pass out at home. Stay away from that automobile. I don't know what effect it's going to have over the Labor Day period. We don't know what the statistics will be for this Labor Day. But I find in disgust that they used to say, well, last Labor Day weekend we had 432 fatalities on the highways in Pennsylvania, and this year we're going to have 375. It almost sounded like, well, we got to kill more people so we can meet last year's score. Well, they don't do that anymore, I don't think. So I'm Irv Homer. This program, once again, is brought to you from broadcasting from IrvHomer.com. You want to contact me on my website, www.irvhomer.com, or my email at evilirv@irvhomer.com. And once again, if you have any trouble at all with your computers, any difficulty at all with website, take a look at what's on my website. Take a look at look at it closely and see the perfection that's in those websites. You contact RGH Computer Services for all your computer needs. 215-322-8685. 215-322-8685. This is Irv Homer saying have a great rest of the Labor Day. Don't forget, next week, the Republican National Convention. We'll be talking about that. And again, there is no such thing as an illegitimate child. Thanks to the liberals, because you conservatives would still love to call them bastards, wouldn't you? I'm Irv Homer. Never wrong, sometimes in doubt. See ya.